Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Leslie Blevins with Enilda Clinic, and today we are going to chat about money and your children, specifically about what you can do across different age groups as your children are aging and helping them to understand money, how to have a good relationship with money so that they're not aligning their self-worth with money, just really helping them to make the most of life so that money concerns don't become a predominant factor in their life. I'm really excited to have Sarah Carlson and Katie. Is it Katie or Kate?
I'm Katie, yeah.
Katie Toth, okay, great, with the Folsom Financial Group here with us today. Thank you, ladies, for being here. And they're here in Spokane, right? You guys are based in Spokane?
Yeah, our office is on Grand Avenue, right across from St. John's Cathedral. So we have
nice.
a building.
Awesome. Okay.
We're tuning in from today.
Would you say that one more time?
Well, that's where Katie and I are right now.
Yeah, we're at the firm.
We're at the firm.
Fantastic. Okay, great. Well, will you tell us a little bit about your financial group, what you might specialize in, or all those things, just so that we kind of know a little bit more about you?
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate you having us on. So I'm Sarah Carlson. I'm the founder of Fulcrum Financial Group. Collectively, between myself and Katie and Travis, the three financial advisors here, we have over 50 years experience. We do financial planning and wealth management, and we specialize in helping people that are explorers and embracing change. So many times our clients are dealing with a lot of challenges and stresses, and we help put together plans and simplify and help get them to their financial goals.
Awesome.
And I'm Katie Toth. I'm also a wealth advisor here at Fulcrum Financial Group. And I would say to Sarah's point, we specialize in change management. So oftentimes we find ourselves working with clients that are in some kind of transition, but because of a big life event. It could be divorce, death of a loved one, or managing life with dependents, like we're talking about here today with kids. And I find it just really fulfilling to get to be a part of the change process in the lives of our clients.
Yeah, that's a big area in mental health as well. We call it transition therapy. And I feel like across any one person's life, there are so many transitions. And I think people in general think, oh, it's just normal, right? Like we transition from being a teenager in our parents' home into adulthood, or we transition from being single to being married, or from being this individual to suddenly being a parent, where it's like your heart's outside your body. And there's all these transitions that occur in life, but that doesn't necessarily make it easy. And so I think it's really nice to have, at least I've learned this in my life, to have experts who specialize in the different parts of the transition that are difficult. I know for me, I mean, my story is so normal for my age group, but whenever I turned 18 and moved to college, I racked up so much credit card debt. Luckily, after I graduated from college, I worked really hard to pay it all off before I went to graduate school, because it was just insane. But that's what I did. And I know so many people who did that. And it was just part of my transition. It was like, oh my gosh, I have access to all this free money. And I just took it. I took everything they gave me. And every time my credit card maxed out, they gave me more credit. Like, why? Why would they do that?
A lot of money.
Yeah.
I remember one time in college, I went to college in Boston, and I remember one time walking around Sephora, and because that's what I did when I was bored or I was homesick or whatever, any emotion, I went to Sephora. And I love makeup. I love makeup so much. And I was walking around buying, and the credit card guy, wanted me to like pay my extraordinarily high bill. had called me and he was like, I'm calling because you need to make a payment. And I'm like, I don't know. I think that you might be an identity theft person. And he was just laughing at me. And I was like, I think I'm just going to hang up now. And I went on to buy some more makeup to be young.
Yeah. So that's like a form of shopping therapy where, you know, so many times people will look for material things to give themselves a dopamine boost, you know, and it can really create a huge black hole, which then trying to get out of is so challenging. It's the richness of getting out of and building new habits, which then can lead to an incredible path. So it was interesting. We did a review of our client base, and we really do have so many, primarily women in your age group. I mean, so many women from 30 to 50, that it's really about financial empowerment. And many times, as women, you know, we get going where we're juggling so much, raising our kids, having a career, you know, so many times we're willing to give away a part of ourselves to solve someone else's situation. And we forget that it's so important to invest in ourselves. And so that's one of the best things about what Katie and I do, is just to help work with our clients one-on-one. It's not advising to them, it's advising with them in a collaborative process, and watching people's lives transform overnight. Katie and I were talking with a client yesterday that was new to our practice a couple of years ago. And yesterday she was saying, you know, you told me I could be at this place where I would have financial independence, be on my road to retirement, and be able to have discretionary income to have life experiences. She's like, when you told me that, I didn't believe it. And yet she took the advice. We were able to invest her money, but putting a plan in place and then monitoring it to help her navigate, because life continues to happen. You know, as you know, like this year alone, how much has happened that you don't have control over, and that the choices you make in your financial life are one of the few things that you can control. You can choose, you know, whether you go to Sephora or you choose to maybe whittle down, right? Those are choices. And so that's been rewarding. What would you add to that?
Gosh, this is so rich, the discussion. Leslie, you just made me think of and I have had my own experience with this, my naivete, because I too went into debt in graduate school. And I, prior to that, had not had an experience with it. And so I didn't really know. And my parents are amazing, and they have given me many, many gifts. And one thing that we didn't do together, and I didn't do as an independent adult, was to talk about the significance of that debt. And so what your story reminded me of was just when it's this concept that's kind of out there and abstract, we don't know what it means to have control over that and make those monthly payments and get it off our backs, because it can really be an unintentional burden, right? And so the parenting piece in that, I think we have the ability to start with our kids at a really young age to help them develop a healthy relationship with this resource. It's a resource that is not good or bad, but it can become that depending on the stuff that we project onto it. But if we can teach our kids this is a valuable resource, and it is necessary to take care of yourself, and it can provide you with some enjoyment, and try to create that healthy, practical relationship from a really young age. For example, my 3-year-old and 5-year-old, when I think the concept of money and resources, it comes into play at the grocery store, right? Where your kid wants this, your kid wants that. And even with my 3-year-old, my 5-year-old, I have the opportunity to say to them, we don't need that. We're not going to spend this resource on that. And then to really stick with that. And in addition, my kids at a really young age, they're getting gifts of $5 here or there for the holidays or their birthdays. So to use that as an opportunity to start to explore the concepts of saving, sharing, and spending. And you can really start that at a young age, and then to be thoughtful as your kids age, to talk to them about financial concepts that are developmentally appropriate.
I love all of that. I love how it's, unfortunately, I had to learn it the hard way, the way many people do. I love how, though, you guys are talking about a very preventive and guided approach where we can teach children how to use money to live a life that is about their values, that's really rich. I love even the fact it's not just about spending and saving, it's also about sharing, which I think is such a hot topic right now in our society. That's just so amazing. So let's kind of dive into the parenting piece, especially with 3-year-olds. Tell me, what are the big topics there with 3-year-olds? Like, how are you presenting that information so that a 3-year-old is starting to understand those values?
I think one of the really important things to realize as any young child is you as the parent are such an important role model. So the way you're modeling is going to really have long-term implications. So I think Katie was sharing with me some fascinating studies, and we had talked about, the fact kids under the age of 7 develop so much of their concept of whether or not money's a good or bad thing, right? And where does that message come from? It comes from the parents. So as a parent, I think if you're showcasing and bringing value to something physical, like, oh, don't drop that computer, it's so valuable. That's a kind of challenging. That's where you're valuing materialistic things. But I think if you even at a young age, by helping children understand that money equates to other things, many times like time, mommy and daddy had to go to work to do this, to then earn this money, and this is the opportunity. And then giving them, even starting at a young age, a choice. So just like Katie was talking about, the opportunity of if you're going to buy how much are you going to actually buy versus what are you going to give away and help your community, and what are you going to save?
Yeah, and to Sarah's point about modeling, I think that a really concrete way to do that, to go back to the idea of being at the store, is to talk about, okay, we're going to choose this because it's just as good as this, but it's on sale, and I want to, save this money so that we can go get ice cream, and to start to explore that. Another really interesting thing about really young kids is that they are starting to explore those concepts of money, and if I save this, I can go to Disneyland. So what are, some concrete ways to have them be participatory in thinking about that with you? Like, mom's going to save this so that we can take this trip, and this is how mom is going to do it, and I model it, and this is how you're going to do it. When you get a gift from Nana, when you get a gift from Granny, it goes in the save jar. And so just, really walking alongside your kids in that way.
So that's interesting, because what I'm getting from this is that having an openness to talk about money is important. I have noticed that sometimes there's a tendency for parents to not let their kids know exactly how much certain things cost. Maybe a tendency, not that, and it might come with any family, a family where, they have to really monitor how they manage their expenses in order for, let's say, a child to participate in 2 or 3 extracurricular activities. And it might also happen in a family where they can easily designate money for 2 or 3 extracurricular activities and then other things as well. And I just kind of get this sense, and from what I've read, that sometimes parents are trying to maybe protect their children from understanding that the family is having to or the parents are having to intentionally think about the way that they're spending their money so that the children are having opportunities. What are your guys' thoughts about that? Because I'm hearing like maybe like, no, like let's be intentional. Let's help the children understand for being intentional.
Yeah, I do think it's important to have the children be part of the conversation. That's part of the ownership of helping to make the decision. It's, you know, if you think about what the children consume, whether online or on TV, they're being sold like the latest gadget, the latest, I mean, there's so much coming at them. When you take them to the grocery store, what's at their eye level? It's like all the sugary, flashy stuff. So it is challenged to say no, but it's so important. It's so important to help them understand the choice, and that's where giving them some power. You have $1, you want to get a treat, you want, you know, ice cream or a candy bar. We're not going to get both. I mean, too much of that stuff can really lead to other problems of entitlement and narcissism, which I don't think any parent wants their child to grow up to be.
Yeah, well, and Leslie, what you were describing where a parent maybe has limited resources and they're trying to protect their kid from that, that's so complex emotionally and psychologically, right? But ultimately, if you can get to a place of these are the facts of our life and I'm not ashamed of it, and I'm not ashamed of the fact that there are limitations and that we have to make decisions within that, and not to overexpose your kid to something that, not to slime them with guilt or shame or any of that stuff. But if you can, as a parent, get to a place where it's a neutral topic that you can speak practically with your kid about, that is going to be the greatest gift, greater than going to soccer.
Right. A life skill, it sounds like. And I had never thought about, to go back to something Sarah said, I had never thought about the fact that even if a parent or a set of parents have decided to protect their child from money conversations, they want their child to feel like, oh, you know, like we're comfortable, we can have access to anything we need, right? Or even just like the moderate wants that we have. That does not mean that the child is not being exposed to all of the commercials and all of the advertising, which is so much. Like, I know I just read the data for it very recently, but it's like thousands of advertisements a day that children are exposed to. It's insane. It's so high. And so, yeah, it's almost like I'm sitting here thinking, like, if a parent intentionally takes away their influence, it's almost increasing the advertiser's influence and the amount of control that they have over the child's way of thinking. And I don't know any parent who wants to give the advertisers more control.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so few little things we can control. You know, having those conversations and creating some comfort. So to take the shame out of it and instead kind of give it the power of helping them build the blocks, because at the next stage, it's reasonable for children to understand, you know, where money comes from. I mean, of course, mom and dad go to work and, you know, they spend their time, but there's also the opportunity to say, well, you know what, let's take that money to the bank, and the bank is going to pay you this much, because then what the bank does, it will lend Mr. Business Owner some money and charge him more, and they're giving you part of that profit. So the idea that your money can make money, right? So that's a concept that can to just help them understand the opportunity that money is. That money is just not meant to be consumed. It really is meant to create options and choices. And you can't have everything, but you can have some choice and control in how you spend that money. I think that's very empowering for children.
Yeah.
Katie?
I was just going to say that kind of gets into that next stage of development in terms of money concepts, like 6 to 10. So you might not be able to actually have a bank account at the bank at that age, but you can have a bank account with your household, with your family, and you can start to have chores where money is generated by meaningfully serving your community, and that starts in your household, right? And then getting to see, having a ledger and getting to see that money grow, and exposing your children to the concept of compound interest, which Einstein, I guess, supposedly said is the 8th wonder of the world. And there's some great videos on YouTube that last like a minute that you can watch with your kids about that. But to start to get into some of that more complex concepts with your kids at those ages.
Yeah. So let's go into allowances a little bit more specifically and concretely. This is where I get a ton of questions from parents. So specifically, a parent wants to get very detailed with it. They might have a list of 5 things the child has to do every single week. Let's say the child only did 4 out of the 5, or maybe they did all 5, but they did 2 of the things poorly, or they had to be reminded for one of the things or something like that. So there's just all this, like they want the child to do their chores 100%. They want a score of 100 on that test. And then oftentimes parents these days I see want to link that to money. They're kind of seeing it as like a job. Like they go to work, they earn money, they kind of want to parallel that down to a job. But the interesting thing, Katie, that you just mentioned is that you're kind of seeing it as a contribution to the community. And I feel like those are 2 different things in my mind, but maybe I don't have it right. Maybe you can go into a little bit more detail about that.
Well, if I'm understanding your question right, I see what I do as being of service in my community, and that is how I generate what I need to support my family. And my expectations for my kids is that they live their lives in service to community in some meaningful way. And that starts at home. So if they're going to, and my kids do not get an allowance at this point, but when we reach that juncture, I'm going to expect for them to contribute meaningfully in the way that makes sense within my family. Hopefully they will do all the laundry. and that is how they're going to generate income. That's how they're going to generate the ability to go do something fun, to go, have some little pleasure, to save for Disneyland, that kind of stuff. Does that?
So for you, it does actually parallel the workforce work that we're doing. But for you, work is a form of community service. I get it. Yeah. Something interesting you just said, though, is that you have a 3 and a 4-year-old. Is that what you said earlier?
3 and 5.
3 and 5. But you're not giving them allowances. Do they ever have chores?
Well, they clean up. They have to be responsible for our space. That's the big stuff that they do. And then they're 3 and 5, so sometimes their help can be questionable, but they like to stand up by me while I'm doing the dishes, and they like to help fold the laundry and hang up their clothes. So that's what it looks like in my house at this point.
Sure, sure. So they're contributing.
So one system that was very impactful in my family, I have a family of 5, was we developed a system where each chore had a monetary value for it. So like changing the kitty litter paid more than emptying the dishwasher. And we made a grid, and then we did self-selection as we did chores. We would exit out, and then that's how we earned our allowance, was off of these chores. So if we wanted to make more money and buy something, we could just contribute more. And it was a pretty impactful exercise in, you want to make more, you work more. And all of my siblings have gone on to be very successful in their chosen professions. I tried to do that with my kids. We ended up going more to an allowance system where they would contribute, and then we would participate in money making activities, such as babysitting, lemonade stand, to have those entrepreneurial lessons.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Okay. Whenever you say an allowance, you mean like it's not dependent on the type of work they're doing?
No, they had specific chores that they were expected to help with. Their allowance was not dependent on it, but their allowance was a certain amount of money, and they had choice over how it got spent. Whether they went to the movies or they bought, at the time, Yu-Gi-Oh cards were, they got to choose. And I think that process of going through choice is really important, even at young ages for kids, but not to have everything just given to them. I think that really causes a problem. I think as parents, seen a lot of cases, helicoptering, trying to, hover and control everything they're doing. It doesn't allow them to adult and spring free.
And
the other thing is mowing, and where parents are trying to problem solve everything for the client or for their child, so they have this smooth lawn in front of them, and it really does a disservice. I mean, these kids are not able to function in the real world, and it's showing up in some interesting ways. I was kind of fascinated by the whole GoFundMe or the Kickstart, where people want to do something and they're, I had one young person want to go on a dream vacation and, solicit people for money. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. I wonder, there's no GoFundMe for retirement. And these kids need to have skills, because there's a lot of opportunity, and there's going to be a lot of responsibility. So
yeah. Okay. You said so many interesting things just then, and I'm kind of getting lost in my thoughts. I'm like, okay, which one do I hit on first?
Always come back. This is fun.
We could make this 2 hours.
I like it whenever the conversation is that good, where I feel like I could just keep going on and on and on. Okay, so okay, I feel like one of the questions I guess I have for you, Sarah, is whenever your children were in the home and getting allowances, did you ever restrict their allowance based on their behavior?
They lost privileges. So I mean, I think it had more to do with things that were their reward versus taking away money from them. I didn't punish them by taking money away, but I did punish them by taking away TV time, being able to game time with friends, for inappropriate behavior. Yeah.
So I can tell that you didn't anticipate this question, so you haven't had time to think about why you might have done that in the past, or maybe you have, I don't know. So I apologize for that, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you know why you might have leaned towards taking away things like friend time rather than taking away things like allowance. And I ask because, again, I have lots of parents who lean towards equating very specific behaviors with amounts of money, and it gets really complicated in the end. And so I end up giving parents very generic rules that make their lives a lot easier. But I don't know, you guys are the financial people, so I'm interested to hear what you think.
That is a fascinating idea, and you're the psychologist from that standpoint. I think I have always been very comfortable with money, and in part because my family has always talked about it, and I realize that's not the norm. I knew I'd come into this industry when I was a young girl just because it was so interesting and fascinating. So money was never used to be shamed or to manipulate. It was more curious and opportunistic. And I think for my kids, I didn't want them to have ill feeling of money. I mean, money's meant to be a tool. It's not the goal. In our practice, we really help people. We talk a lot about wholeness. It's not about being rich, it's about living richly. So really those experiences and helping people make nutritious choices. So when I look back at like disciplining my kids, it was more of trying to modify behaviors that were inappropriate.
I love that so much. That right there was so succinct and helpful. That's going to help so many parents, because I think that actually made it really concrete about where the shame comes in, right? Like, because the shame for, I think, many, if not all parents, it's born out of their own childhoods, right? It's the associations they have with money, and now they're trying to reduce the amount of shame they have in adulthood, or they don't want their children to feel shame. So that addresses how they interact with money, how they allow their children to interact with money, all those kinds of things. And the fact that you don't create this contingency between the child and money, regardless of the child's behavior, means that money doesn't mean anything about the child at all. Money is just a tool. And so you're not creating a shameful experience between the child and money. And so to me, that just made everything make sense about money. So I'm hoping that my restatement of what Sarah just said, and Sarah's very eloquent statement in the first place, really helps parents a lot. I feel like I know what to say to parents now whenever we talk about allowances and what to do whenever they're trying to think about consequences for their kids. Yeah. Oh, yes. Thank you. So let's see. I'm sorry, Katie.
A breakthrough.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. I've done this. I did this business class about a year ago, where it was all about money mindset, because, being a business owner is so different than being an employee. And it's like your money mindset, if you don't have a good one, then it's not going to work out. And you just dove so deep for those 2 to 3 weeks into like your childhood and what money means to you and how you use money. And I was like, well, I buy things. I buy things to make me feel better. And so I've had to really like fix all of that. But I feel like you really kind of boiled it down into money as a tool. Money is not the way to make myself feel better. Money is not the way to, other people do it for other things as well. But it just really makes sense there, what you just said. So let's go back to children of different ages. One thing I want to point out in the 6 to 10-year-old range is something you guys shared with me whenever we were chatting back and forth, is that by 7 years old, children already have a mindset about money. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I just think it's kind of a startling piece of psychological information. And it's something that warrants for all of us to take seriously, that that incubation stage of 0 to 7 is really important. They're really important, whether you are talking to your child or not about money, they're getting a lot of messages. And you made that point earlier, whether it's through peers, through what they're picking up in their environment, spoken or not. You know, kids who are very young, they are taking in the information around them in some really deep ways. And I think that that's the important thing about that piece of information.
Yeah. So awesome. Yeah. And I remember specifically you sent me a link for an article that said that by 7, children have either a spender or saver mindset. Isn't that's crazy? Oh my goodness.
Also, it's almost like that scarcity, you know, I call it multipliers or dividers, where the scarcity mindset, it's almost like a hoarding mentality and you're scared of it. A multiplier or abundance mindset is more of like, well, I can do things, I can spend it, and that's going to help in that way. I can give to my community. It's more of a snowball effect. And it'd be my hope that children grow up with it's more opportunistic. I think my daughter loves makeup, and she's bought a lot through the years. I remember I knew I was finally making some like progress when she had done some jobs and gotten some birthday money, and she had a nice little nugget in her savings account, and she walked into the store and she saw something she wanted. She thought, oh, I really like that, and you know, how much is it? And it was like an American dollar or something. And so we looked at it, and sure enough, you know, she had enough to buy that. And then she said to me, but just knowing I could buy it just is good enough. I don't necessarily have to buy it. And then she went on and she's like, oh, but I could buy this, you know. And that to me, because I think, you know, what's sexier than owning a Porsche? It's having enough money in your account to buy the Porsche if you wanted it. You know,
There you go. Yeah, there you go. That's awesome. You're totally right about that. Okay, so let's kind of move into young teens and older teens. What should parents know about this age range?
This is an important time for them really to participate, to understand how to balance a checkbook. In this day and age, you know, kids are no longer even writing checks. So, but there are some really valuable lessons at helping them understand how it works and keeping track of it. You know, understanding so much is digital, but kids are not reviewing it. So I actually, with my kids, have printed off statement to explain the different parts of the fees in their accounts. And then getting jobs. I think there's so much opportunity for kids to help out in the neighborhood, whether that's babysitting, helping out with lawn care. And it's really about the act of service as well, you know, as well as understanding that they're getting compensated for their efforts.
Okay.
I think that's important. How about you, Katie?
Yeah, I appreciate all of that. And I also think that it's an age when you start getting into the teens where you can really talk to your kids about budgeting. You know, what do you want to do? How much work and what kind of work do you need to do to meet that part of what you want to do in the future? And actually using a budget, so they start to have some exposure to that. I was just talking to a girlfriend yesterday who her child is looking into colleges, and she was telling me that her daughter is looking at like 15 different colleges and has a spreadsheet, and I just thought, oh my gosh, she's a girl after my own heart. And one of the things she's doing with their daughter is having her daughter explore how much do all these schools cost and comparing it, and how many scholarships do they give away, and what, you know, to really have her participate in the process of what financing college is going to look like for her. I think that's a really important thing to do with kids at that age.
Yeah,
for sure.
that is so important to have them part of that college expense conversation and way before you start to look at colleges. Yeah.
And something that I would add to that is exploring the professions that you're interested in and what they actually look like. I think that can be a part of a teen's work habits. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of businesses, I mean, I know for myself, I would love it if a teenager came in and just organized my office for me and cleaned it. You know what I mean? And I would talk to them about what I do, and maybe that would give them an idea of whether or not they wanted to be a psychologist, but it would help me out and I would pay them. You know what I mean? And I feel like there's all kinds of local businesses that would do that, and it might give kids an idea of what careers they want and whether or not they'd actually be well suited for it. But they also need to understand what the actual pay is going to be, because I feel like there's so many people I know who go to college, rack up student loans, and then the actual pay in the career isn't going to allow them to really make a dent in their student loans. So that's my big point, guys.
I was giving you, you know, like the poetry slam snaps that I totally agree. I think that is such an important part of the exploration. You know, part one being, what are all the different things I can do? And I really want Sarah to tell you about when her son met my husband to talk about being an architect. But yeah, what are all the different things you can do, and what's the kind of revenue that they're going to generate, and to weigh those things of, you know, passion, right? And what are your natural skills? And then is that gonna, if money is a tool, is that gonna, you know, provide the kind of tool that you want? And furthermore, weighing the debt piece, you know, it's a lot of different moving parts.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I also wanted to add, I think every young adult should work at some point in the service industry. You know, working at McDonald's, it's a well-run company of systems. There's so much to be learned. I know my daughter works at a grocery store as a clerk, and it, not only do you understand how a business operates, it's not just putting in time, you see like the different pieces that go on that can be helpful. But more importantly, as they move forward and perhaps they become an architect or a doctor, you know, forever when they are dealing with people in the service industry, they're going to have a different level of empathy and appreciation for how hard they work. And so I think that's another important part of the adulting and part of the process of teaching children about how the system, the money system works.
For sure, for sure. So I'm going to ask you a question as if I think teenagers don't know it, but really I don't know the answer. How do people learn about investing and all that money stuff that is like a different world if you didn't grow up with a family that understood money?
Yeah, one of the services we do with our families is we do some financial education with their children. So we have had parents send their kids in to have some one-on-one, just because talking with someone that has a lot of knowledge is going to be received differently than with the parent. I think there's a little bit of financial literacy being gained in schools, but not much. But there is, I think there is an opportunity for some coursework in that. Do you know of anything locally that is money workshop? Maybe we should do that, Leslie. That would be a good, we could do a series on money steps in education. Katie and I would love to help you with that.
I think there's a gap. And one of the reasons why, and I'm not trying to plug Fulcrum right now, but one of the reasons why I love being at this firm is that there aren't there aren't minimums. So we're inclusive, we're not exclusive. And so we work with clients with substantial assets, and we work with clients just starting out. And I think that in terms of basic education that kids get, and then on into adulthood, there is a service gap in terms of financial literacy and really taking power and ownership over your ability to build the future that you want. And there's some really, fundamental basic steps you can take that will change the trajectory of your life. So I think there's totally an opportunity that, we could be in service to.
Sure. I would think that would be an amazing idea. I know for myself, not having learned any financial literacy in my family of origin or at my school growing up. And then, I mean, I was in school for, I don't even know how long, decades. So it's not like I had any money at all. You know what I mean? I was in the negative the whole time. And so it's only now that I'm finally in my profession that I can even think about like how to utilize money as a tool. And I know I just said so many wrong things, and you guys are sitting there saying like, oh, my stomach just clenched. Like money was a tool back then whenever you were getting in debt, Leslie. But with all of that said, I try to like read books or take these online courses, and I feel like they're like, even the beginning level, it feels overwhelming to me. And maybe it's because of like the mindset part, like just feeling so anxious or something. And so I feel like I need a resource that like says, Leslie, calm down, like at the beginning. And like every like 2 minutes it says, Leslie, take a deep breath, calm down. It'll be okay. You know what I mean?
Your phone tells you when to stand up because you've been sitting too long.
Yeah.
I think, certainly the financial industry has done a disservice by talking in acronyms and, making it seem so much more complicated than it is. I mean, it's really our job to talk at a level that our clients can understand. So those building blocks of information are very powerful because they then help you understand and build more knowledge on. So yeah, we'd love to. That would be really fun. I think that right now there's such a need. There's so much out there that we can't control with coronavirus, the social unrest. Now we have the fires in the area. And I have so much empathy for so many parents that are dealing with homes, having their children at home. They're trying to continue their jobs as they would at home. I mean, they're under a lot of pressure and stress. So if there's any opportunity just to provide some interesting concepts and helpful building blocks in that way that they would feel comfortable plugging their kids into, that would be a real honor. We would be, that would be great.
I think to add to that, it's hard to know who to turn to for advice, and it's such a vulnerable feeling, right? With this important tool that we have, who do you turn to for advice, and who can you trust? And there's so many people out there offering themselves up as financial experts that, if you look underneath the hood, don't necessarily haven't walked the walk or don't have the credentials to really be providing that kind of advice. And so it means so much to be a trusted resource to people.
Right. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to speak to the audience right now and say that as you're watching this, if you have questions, it would be a great opportunity for you to send them in. You can post in the comments if you're on YouTube. You can post them on Facebook. I read all the comments, people, even the mean ones. I haven't learned my lesson yet. So yes, I do see all that information. And let us know what your financial questions are. And so hopefully we can maybe put something together for the future and address your questions. Or you can even send, if you have a question or comment, to frontdesk@enildaclinic.com. That is the email to my practice, and I can look at including your question there too. All right, Sarah and Katie, thank you so much for all of your information. Is there any final thoughts that you want to share?
We just are so thank you for the opportunity to talk with you today. Your program is providing such a valuable service to our community. So thank you. You are just a real bright spot for, I'm sure, a lot of other women and fathers in the community. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I love doing this work.
You're really good at it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing. Where can people find you if they want to work more with you?
Yeah, our website is www.fulcrumfinancialgroup.com. We also have a Facebook page. We're also on YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So we are producing content regularly. We have we just finished our first retirement series this week and had really nice reviews. So we're gonna probably do regular educational live events once a week going forward.
Right. And so if you have enjoyed hearing from Sarah and I today, if you like Fulcrum Financial Group on Facebook, you'll see our live streams as we do educational live streams.
I will definitely be looking into that. Anything I can get to better understand my finances, I need it for sure. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you, ladies, for being here. Thank you for all of your information. This has been so helpful. Like I said, I feel like this has given me insight. It's going to make me a better psychologist, really going to help me to help parents out there. Everybody, make sure that you subscribe on YouTube, hit the like button for this video. And if you're on enildaclinic.com, you can sign up to get videos right in your email. I release a new video every week, and you don't want to miss whenever we put out our financial education video or collaboration that's coming up. All right, guys. I will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.